Two lucky mice awaken the twin system. System 1. Enlarge 100 times. It can enlarge the volume and weight of any item by 100 times. System 2. Shrink 100 times. It can shrink its user and any item's volume and weight by 100 times. I was lying in the hole in the wall we'd called home for 3 years. My nose filled with the familiar scent of plaster dust and cookie crumbs. Two glowing orbs of light floated in front of me, while my little brother's eyes were shining. He was practically drooling as he lunged toward the enlarge 100 times orb. Exactly like in my past life, he dove right into the orb of light. A faint golden aura instantly enveloped his body, and he jumped up and down in excitement. He finally turned to look at me, a grain of rice we stole yesterday still clutched in his paw. Without a second thought, he activated the system. That tiny grain of rice instantly swelled up, turning into a mountain of rice that nearly caused our narrow home in the wall to collapse. It's real, the enlarged system is really mine. My brother spun around like a madman, then looked at me smugly. He pointed a paw at the remaining shrink system orb. Brother, you can have this useless one. He looked at his triumphant face and sneered inwardly. So short-sighted, in my last life, it was this same fool. No entry. He cried and begged for the enlarged system, turning a single grain of rice into a mountain. He thought he was the chosen one of the mouse world, while I could only take the shrink system that he saw as useless. But no one expected that 3 days later, the humans in the entire building would launch the most severe mouse extermination campaign in history. Glue traps covered every inch of the floor, mouse traps were hidden in every corner, and disinfectant was poured like a rainstorm into every wall cavity and ventilation duct. Even the sewers were laced with deadly rat poison. It was a catastrophe that lasted for 5 years. Every path outside was a dead end. All the mice were trapped within the building's walls. Food became the greatest luxury. I used the shrink system to make myself the size of a dust particle. Slipping into the humans' tightly locked food cabinets and rice bins with screwed-on lids. And even into sealed tin cans. I managed to empty out the kitchen supplies of half the units in our building. That's how I barely managed to get this foolish brother of mine through those 5 years. But him? From the very first day he awakened his system, his mind and heart were completely set on what was across the hall. On Duo Duo, the pet hamster raised by the humans there. In my past life, he took the food I risked my life to steal every day. Used the enlarged system to turn it into mountains of rice and mountains of cookies, and passed it through the cage to Duo Duo and her family. I warned him countless times, Duo Duo is a human's pet. The humans feed her, she'll never starve. In these apocalyptic times, you can't trust other mice. But he wouldn't listen and even called me cold-blooded for refusing to help those in need. Later, the exterminations got more severe, and my stored food supply began to dwindle. I sealed the entrance to our nest, forbidding him from taking anything else outside. Yet while I was out searching for a water source, he secretly took more than half of my hidden stash and gave it all to Duo Duo's family. All because Duo Duo shed a couple of tears and said her parents were getting thin from hunger. I survived 5 years of the great mouse extermination, dodging countless human exterminations and traps. In the end, I wasn't killed by humans, but at the hands of the very brother I had protected with all my heart. All because Duo Duo said to him, I bet your brother has more hidden treasures, doesn't he? And that shrink system, if you had it, you could get into the human's safe. And steal some golden sunflower seeds for me. Brother, what are you spacing out for? He came closer and nudged me with his shoulder, his eyes holding a hint of probing. See how powerful my system is? That shrinking one of yours seems pretty useless, huh? Are you jealous of me? What's there to be jealous of? It's just a system. If you like it so much, you can have it. I'm not interested in the magnifying one. Notice. The wariness in my little brother's eyes vanished in an instant. He grinned, showing his 2 big front teeth, completely at ease. He didn't stick around for a second longer. He turned, grabbed that mountain of a rice grain, and scurried out of the hole in the wall. He ran towards the apartment across the hall. Duoduo, Duoduo, look what I brought for you. I sneered as I peeked through a crack in the wall. Duoduo's owner was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through their phone, completely oblivious to the mouse next to the cage. I turned and grabbed the discarded calendar I had stashed in a crack in the wall, then dipped my paw in a little water. I marked a line on it for October 17th, the day of the massive, community-wide, no-escape mouse extermination. There were exactly 3 days left. This time, I was living only for myself. I scoured every single kitchen on the 18th floor, gathering all the cookie crumbs, cheese rinds, rice grains, and nuts the humans had left out. I took every last bit of it. On my way back, I even slipped into the storage room. I used my newly acquired shrinking system to shrink the rice, flour, and dried vegetables in the humans' sealed bags into tiny granules. I carried them back to my nest, trip after trip, to make sure I'd have food to last through the 5 years of extermination. I even snuck into the flower pots on the balcony and brought back vegetable seeds that could sprout. I even dragged back several nests of plump mealworms from the flower bed downstairs. This was the most precious protein you could find in the apocalypse. And I certainly hadn't forgotten about my safe house. In my past life, I had gnawed a secret compartment deep inside the wall, no bigger than a fingernail. No other mouse knew about it but me. The entrance to this compartment was hidden behind a loose piece of plaster. Only I could get inside using my shrinking system. So, in the dead of night, trip after trip, I used my shrinking system to shrink everything I'd collected down to its smallest size and hid it all in the compartment. Inside the compartment, I laid down stolen human cotton pads. They were soft and would insulate against the damp and cold. I brought back a discarded button battery and a tiny light bulb, so even if it was pitch black outside, I would still have light in here. I even managed to get a small piece of activated charcoal, so even if the humans sprayed disinfectant, it would filter out the pungent, poisonous gas. I wouldn't have to worry about being suffocated. By the time I finished setting up the compartment, it had become a tiny, fully equipped farm. There was even a plot for farming, stored grains, and a seashell for collecting water. There was also a special little box for raising mealworms. Meanwhile, for 2 whole days, my little brother did nothing but hang around the hamster cage across the hall, only coming back to grab a few things. He remembered just as clearly as I did that the world-ending extermination was in just 3 days. But he wasn't panicked at all. He figured that with his magnifying system, even if he only had 1 grain of rice, he could turn it into a mountain. There was no need to go through all the trouble of hoarding supplies. That evening, he finally came home. He reeked of hamster bath sand, his face glowing with a dopey, love-struck happiness. Pow Pow sidled up to me. "Bro, do you think if I save Duoduo and her family, that after the extermination is over, Duoduo will marry me?" "No, she won't. It's impossible. You're lying." "Notice. Duoduo said she likes me best." My little brother's fur instantly stood on end as he glared at me. "Notice. Bro, tell me the truth. Do you like Duoduo, too?" "Let me tell you, don't even think about it. She's mine." I couldn't be bothered to deal with him, so I just kept using my shrinking system to grind the seeds into powder and storing it in nutshells I had hidden away. "Bro, do you have any more of that cheese you stashed? Give me a few pieces, will you? It's Duoduo's favorite." I looked everywhere, but I couldn't find any. "No, what I've gathered is just enough for myself." "You've hidden so much food. Zuyi, give a few pieces to Duoduo." "What's wrong? Why are you being so stingy?" "I found this food, so I'll give it to whoever I want." "Why are you reacting like that?" No, brother. Zuyi, I was just saying. By the way, brother, that half a soda cracker you hid by the entrance of our nest yesterday. Zuyi, I gave it to those poor little stray mice downstairs who were about to starve to death. They were so pitiful. You're not mad, are you? It's happening again. In my past life, he was just like this, using pity as an excuse. He gave all the supplies I risked my life to steal to Duoduo and her family. I thought I had done everything I could for him as his older brother. Not long after we were born, our mother got stuck on a human's glue trap. I was the one who raised him, feeding him mouthful by mouthful. I fought off other mice to give him the safest nest. I gave him the most food, even when my leg was bitten by a bigger mouse. I still brought back the stolen cheese for him to eat. Later, we found this nest in a hole in the wall on the 18th floor. It was safe and warm. I brought him over right away, but he'd only been living here for 2 days when he saw Duoduo in the cage across the way. Ever since then, it's like he's been possessed, running over there every day, taking all my efforts for granted. In my past life, even when he stole all my stored food, I never kicked him out. I still took care of him for 5 years, but what I got in return was being pushed down a ventilation shaft. If you gave it away, you gave it away. It doesn't matter. I knew you were the best, brother. You definitely wouldn't blame me for something so small. I pushed his paw away, got up and crawled deep into the wall. I'm tired, I'm going to sleep. You should get some rest, too. The moment I turned around, The smile in my eyes completely vanished. There's one day left. I still have one last thing to do. There's one day left. I still have one last thing to do. The last day. Before dawn, my younger brother ran off to Duodwo's place again. I could even hear Duodwo's owner complaining to the neighbor. There's a mouse hanging around our cage every day. It's so annoying. I'll call an extermination company this weekend to fumigate the whole building. The neighbor's agreeing voice drifted in through the crack in the wall. I pretended I didn't hear anything. There was only 1 hour left until the extermination began. I left a faint scent trail for my brother, telling him I went downstairs to find food. And that I wouldn't be back tonight. Just like in my past life. He only left a half-hearted scent in reply, without even a word of warning. He was probably wishing I would die out there, so the whole nest and all my things would be his. While he was still fawning over the mouse across the way, I went to all the entrances to my nest. I set up the tripwires I made from mouse whiskers, and placed them in various positions in the wall's cracks. I had stolen small mirrors that could clearly show all movement inside and outside the nest. After finishing all of this, I moved the loose wall brick and slipped into the hidden compartment. With a single thought, I activated the shrinking system. After a dizzying spin, I had shrunk completely to the size of a dust mote, standing in the small world I had built myself. Looking at the flat land, the sprouted seeds, the warehouse full of grain, and the plump mealworms, my heart was filled with a sense of security. Now, I no longer have to worry about exterminators. I no longer have to risk my life to raise an ungrateful little brother. Before long, the piercing siren of the exterminator's truck echoed from downstairs, followed by the hissing sound of disinfectant being sprayed. There was the sound of humans closing their doors and windows, and the panicked screams of countless mice. The great extermination arrived right on schedule. I was nestled in my soft little bed of cotton pads, peeking through a crack in the partition, watching the scene reflected in the mirror. My brother was leading Duodwo's family. That's right, he'd actually taken advantage of the chaos from the human extermination to rescue all 3 of them from their cage and bring them into what used to be our nest in the wall. Duodwo, don't be afraid. With me here, you won't starve. Watch this. A flash of light. That grain of rice instantly turned into a huge mountain of rice, cramming the entire wall nest full. Duodwo and her parents let out surprised squeals, crowding around my brother and nuzzling against him. Praise went straight to his head. Idiot, he has no idea that the magnification system can enlarge food, but that it also amplifies sound. A rice mountain this big, and a commotion this loud. The human exterminators would find this place in no time. And all I had to do was watch comfortably from my safe house. Watch how he gets himself killed for his one true love. This time, I won't save him. Never again. I rolled over on my soft bed, padded with discarded cotton puffs, and leisurely chewed on half a dehydrated mealworm. I looked up at the small, stolen mirror in the crack of the wall. In the mirror, that once insignificant grain of rice was expanding wildly, driven by the faint golden aura around my brother. In the blink of an eye, it became a giant mountain of rice that almost touched the ceiling. Our already cramped nest in the wall was instantly and completely blocked by this sudden behemoth. Wow, you're amazing. You're practically a god among mice. Her snobbish parents were rubbing their paws together incessantly, praising my brother to the skies. The flattery went to my brother's head. He puffed out his chest with pride. Duodwo, don't you worry. As long as I'm here, you'll have more rice than you can eat for the rest of your life. Idiot, he was gloating to himself, completely unaware that since the rice was magnified 100 times, the starchy, sweet smell it gave off was also magnified 100 times. What's even more deadly is that this mountain of rice had completely sealed off the only air vent in the wall. A few minutes later, the family in the mirror began to gasp for air, making pained, squeaking sounds from the lack of oxygen. And at the same time, outside the safe house where I was hiding, I could hear the heavy, hurried footsteps of the human extermination squad. That overwhelmingly pungent scent of rice was practically a shining beacon leading the exterminators right to them. An extremely piercing hiss of a high-pressure sprayer sounded outside the wall. The next second, a thick, white, poisonous fog snaked its way frantically through the cracks and into the cavity where my brother was. I glanced around my miniature safe house, at the activated charcoal filtration system working perfectly in the corner. With a cold smile, I picked up my dried fruit tea, brewed with dewdrops, and took a sip. The world outside had become a living hell. The poison gas was pouring in. My brother tried to escape with Duoduo's family, only to find that their only way out was completely blocked by the very mountain of rice he'd been so proud of. The rice grains had become as hard as granite. He scratched at it desperately with his paws and gnawed at it with his teeth until his mouth was full of blood. But he could only manage to scrape off tiny bits of rice bran. "Help, I'm suffocating." Duoduo's father's eyes rolled back as he convulsed on the ground. My brother's eyes turned red with panic. Finally, before the gas completely overwhelmed them, he found an extremely narrow gap between the rice mountain and the wall. He pulled and dragged Duoduo's family out, and they scrambled wretchedly into a spare pipe leading to the ceiling. Just as his tail was about to disappear into the pipe, a drop of highly concentrated disinfectant fell from above. Landing precisely on the tip of his tail, the searing pain made him let out an earth-shattering scream. The patch of skin and flesh instantly turned black and started to rot. Meanwhile, I just expressionlessly nudged the mirror with my paw to get a better viewing angle. The space in the ceiling was filled with dust and prickly fiberglass. My brother dragged his rotting tail, panting heavily. His whole body was trembling. "I'm so thirsty, my throat hurts so much. This is all your fault for making the rice so big. Now we don't even have a home anymore." Duoduo was lying to the side, and not only did she not offer a single word of concern, she started whining and complaining instead. The younger brother's lovesick brain instantly took over again. Ignoring the sharp pain in his tail, he quickly comforted her. "Don't be afraid, Duoduo. I'll find you some water." By the faint light on the human's condensation pipe, he found a drop of condensation the size of a soybean. Without a second thought, he activated the enlargement system again. A pale golden light flashed, and that drop of water instantly expanded into a giant water sphere over half a meter in diameter. Unable to maintain its form due to surface tension, the water sphere burst with a loud bang. For the mice, it was practically a mini tsunami. A violent current instantly washed through the ceiling space, sweeping the younger brother and Duoduo's family away like rag dolls. They slammed heavily against a distant load-bearing wall. The massive sound of rushing water and the impact echoed through the empty pipes. The sound of water attracted uninvited guests. In the darkness, more than a dozen pairs of scarlet eyes began to glow ominously. It was a gang of mutant rats, forced up from the sewers by poison gas. In this post-apocalyptic world, the sewer mutants were the most vicious thugs. Their one-eyed leader was a whole size larger than an ordinary mouse. He stomped one foot on the younger brother's festering tail, sending the younger brother writhing on the ground in pain. They had originally come to eat this group of tender-skinned house mice. But the one-eyed leader smelled the lingering scent of food on the younger brother. After a severe beating, the younger brother, crying his eyes out, confessed the secret of the enlargement system. The rat gang didn't kill him. Instead, they put a collar made of twisted wire around his neck. From that day on, the younger brother, who once thought of himself as the chosen one of the mouse world, was reduced to a mere food-making machine. Every day, the mutant rats would dig through the trash heap for foul-smelling rotten vegetable leaves and dead insects covered in green mold, forcing the younger brother to use the system to enlarge them. The system consumed an extreme amount of energy, and the younger brother was starved to skin and bones, forced to work beyond his limits every day. He was so exhausted he would cough up blood. In the dead of night, the younger brother dragged his broken body, hoping to find comfort from Duoduo. But through a crack in the pipe, he saw the girl he had protected with his life. Duoduo, nestled in the arms of that one-eyed leader, nibbling on the food he had just enlarged. The only clean piece, a cookie crumb. She even nuzzled her head against the leader's filth-caked fur from time to time. "Duoduo, how could you?" The younger brother's eyes widened, staring at the scene in disbelief. The sound of his heartbreak was so loud that even my monitoring radar in the safe house could pick it up. What else was I supposed to do? "You can't even protect me. You get beaten by them every single day. Following you, I'll just starve to death. The leader is so powerful, and I'm only with him to protect my parents. How can you be so selfish? You're not thinking about me at all." What a familiar tone. In my past life, she used the same lines to trick the younger brother and steal all of my food supplies. In my miniature farm, I sharpened my claws with a stolen mini nail file. Unable to stop myself from laughing out loud, on the screen, the one-eyed leader sent the younger brother flying with a kick. He ordered coldly, "Stop your pathetic whining. I just heard chopping from the human kitchen. I smelled top-grade Wagyu beef." Now get your butt down there, enlarge that piece of beef, and bring it back to me. If you fail to bring it back, I'll bite your useless girlfriend and her entire family to death tonight. And have them for a midnight snack." The younger brother lay on the ground in despair, watching Duoduo's cold, retreating back. Trembling all over, his only choice was to crawl towards the deadly air vent that led to the human kitchen. A drop of foul, dark blood splattered heavily onto the kitchen's cold tiles. Dragging his festering, blackened tail, the younger brother was cornered by a pack of red-eyed mutant rats. If he can't conjure up any food today, he'll become these monsters' midnight snack. The air in the human kitchen was filled with the lingering, pungent chemical scent of dish soap. But even stronger was the bloody scent of raw meat on the cutting board. The one-eyed leader, along with a dozen or so massive mutant rats, had completely blocked the kitchen's exit. Their sharp claws scraped against the cabinets, making a cringe-worthy scratching sound. Their crimson eyes held not just hunger, but also a greedy stare at the younger brother, the freak. A small piece hung precariously from the edge of the cutting board. A scrap of top-grade Wagyu beef left by the human. It was its rich, fatty marbling that emanated a deadly allure in the faint moonlight. The younger brother swallowed a mouthful of bloody saliva. His legs were trembling uncontrollably. His energy reserves had hit rock bottom. Waves of dizziness washed over his brain, but he had no other choice. He bit down hard on the tip of his tongue, using the sharp pain to jolt his nerves. He forced himself to activate the amplification system in his mind. A faint golden light once again shone from the tips of his claws. But this time, the light was as dim as a candle flickering in the wind. However, the system's rules were absolute. A piece of Wagyu beef, originally the size of a human fingernail, began to expand wildly within 1/100th of a second of touching the golden light. The younger brother didn't understand the most basic laws of physics. When an object's volume is magnified 100 times, its weight increases exponentially. With a heavy thud, the scrap of meat that was once as light as a feather instantly transformed into a mountain of flesh comparable to a boulder. Its terrifying weight of several hundred pounds directly crushed the solid wood cutting board. And with unstoppable force, it smashed violently downwards onto the human's expensive built-in microwave. Boom! The blast-proof glass door shattered instantly. Countless sharp glass shards flew out in all directions like bullets. In the dead of night, this enormous crash, boom, boom, was like a massive bomb had been detonated. Boom, boom, the floorboards trembled violently. At that moment, I was deep inside my hole in the wall, in my perfectly safe miniature fortress. Watching the piece of raw meat, now larger than a full-grown bull, on my monitor screen, as I picked up a cup of dew and shook my head contemptuously. Idiot, have the laws of physics ceased to exist? At the same time, the light in the master bedroom overhead flicked on. The heavy footsteps of the man of the house, a mixture of shock and fury, were like a countdown to death. Drawing closer to the kitchen step by step, a human's patience has its limits. When a baseball bat can't solve the problem, they'll throw money at it to create the most terrifying technological monstrosity. The next night, something with caterpillar tracks, a mechanical monster flashing with the red glow of infrared, silently glided into the kitchen. A blinding white light tore through the kitchen's darkness. Last night, the man of the house had rushed into the kitchen, baseball bat in hand. Seeing the utter mess, the shattered microwave, and that bizarre, enormous piece of meat. First, he was stunned, and then he erupted in a hysterical roar. "It's all rats. I'm going to kill every last one of you vermin." The furious homeowner didn't just half-heartedly buy a few cheap sticky traps. Instead, he spent a small fortune and ordered from a tech company a miniature robotic rat catcher on tracks, equipped with thermal imaging. The slaughter began precisely at the stroke of midnight. It was a completely one-sided massacre. The one-eyed leader's prized gang of mutant rats were utterly helpless before the relentless mechanical tracks and a probe that discharged 20,000 volts of high-voltage electricity in an instant. They were as fragile as paper toys. The robot dog's infrared sensor precisely locked onto every living creature emitting body heat. A ghostly blue arc of electricity flashed, and a mutant rat was turned into a piece of twitching charcoal before it could even let out a scream. The smell of burning, roasted meat, and the strong stench of blood mixed together, spreading throughout the entire building via the ventilation system. The one-eyed leader frantically bit at the robot dog's metal casing, only to have the probe mercilessly plunge into his eye socket. Run, run, the brother was scared to death. He took advantage of the brief moment the robot dog was electrocuting the leader, gritting his teeth with all his might. Dragging his crippled tail, he took the equally terrified Duoduo and her parents with him, and scrambled through the extremely narrow gap behind the dishwasher, fleeing back into the deepest part of the sewer pipe. The moment he landed, before he could even catch his breath, an ice-cold electronic alarm sounded in his mind. Warning, host stamina is severely depleted. Vital signs have dropped to a critical level. The amplification system is forced into a dormant cool-down period. It would be unusable for 7 days. His last life-saving trump card was now completely gone. In despair, the brother collapsed against the cold, damp pipe wall, his gaze slowly losing focus, becoming completely empty. Meanwhile, inside my miniature farm, heat lamps cast a soft glow. The screams from outside were the perfect soundtrack to my meal. Hunger is the most terrifying catalyst in an apocalypse. After starving for 3 whole days in the dark, sunless pipes, true love, soulmates, and dignity become completely worthless. The only truth is fresh meat you can chew until it's a bloody pulp. In the dead end of the dark ventilation duct, the air was filled with a nauseating, sour stench of decay, and the stench of excrement. Outside, you could still hear the tracks of the miniature robot dog as it patrolled back and forth. The beeping sound of its scanner was a death knell. Any exposure of body heat would result in a fatal high-voltage shock, and inside was a dead end with no escape. 3 days. For 3 whole days, they hadn't eaten so much as a speck of dust or drunk a single drop of water. Without the system's support, the brother was now so weak he didn't even have the strength to stand up. His fur was falling out in clumps, and his eyes were sunken. And the way Duoduo and her parents looked at him began to change in a subtle, horrifying way. In the face of extreme hunger, all that crap about love and vows of eternal love became a meaningless joke. The brother keenly sensed that Duoduo no longer let him get close, huddling tightly in the corner with her parents instead, sizing him up like he was a spare ration. "Duoduo, I'm so hungry. Come here, let me hold you, okay?" the brother murmured weakly, his eyes closed, seeking one last shred of comfort. But what he received wasn't Duoduo's warm embrace, but a series of chilling, scraping sounds. In the dead of night, Duoduo's father, the one who used to bow and grovel before the brother, calling him, "my good son-in-law," that old, flattering hamster, was now hunched over. His dry lips peeled back to reveal his yellowed incisors. His eyes glinted with the greedy green light of a ravenous wolf as he crept silently closer to the brother, toward his one good hind leg. Then, a piercing pain, sharp enough to split bone, shot through the brother's nerves. He let out a blood-curdling scream and opened his eyes, only to see Duoduo's father with a mouthful of fresh blood. He was clamped down on the fleshiest muscle of his thigh, shaking his head and tearing at it like a mad dog. In desperate situations, your own kind becomes the best food. I watched the screen as my brother sent the old hamster that was eating his flesh flying with a kick, and got up from the pool of blood, dragging his mangled leg with the bone exposed. He finally remembered me, the older brother he had betrayed. But it was too late. My sympathy had already died in my previous life. Get away from me, you freaks." The brother's survival instincts exploded. He let out a feral roar and, with all his might, landed a heavy kick right in the old hamster's face. With a sickening rip that set the teeth on edge, he brutally tore from the old hamster's mouth a large chunk of his own flesh and skin. He paid no mind to the gushing blood, and dragged his bloody leg, the bone showing, as he crawled frantically toward the outside. He had escaped the dead-end alley that had become a slaughterhouse. The robot dog patrol had just passed. He was lucky to be alive. The extreme pain, blood loss, and hunger were making him hallucinate. In a daze, he finally remembered his past life. He remembered the one who, no matter how dangerous it was, would always snatch the last bite of cheese from the rat traps and save it for his older brother. He remembered that warm, safe nest in the wall, always lined with dry wood shavings. Following the familiar scent from his memory, he crawled through the maze of pipes for an entire night. Leaving a long trail of blood behind him, he finally made it back to the crack in the wall on the 18th floor. "Brother, you're in there, right? I know I was wrong, I really do. Please, save me. My leg is broken. Help me, brother, please." He was sobbing, his face a mess of snot, tears, and blood. With his filth-covered paws, he weakly clawed at the hard bricks of the wall. His voice was shrill and filled with despair. The truth is, I was standing right in front of him. Not even a centimeter away. I was wearing a top-quality silk eye mask, discarded by humans, which I'd fashioned into a soft robe, and had shrunk myself down to the size of a single speck of dust. He just stood there quietly on the tip of his nose, which was covered in dust, tears, and snot. I looked down on him with indifference, at this face, twisted by pain and fear. This ugly, hypocritical face. No matter how loudly or miserably he cried, to me, in my microscopic world, it was just a comical, muffled rumble. I even watched him with great interest. The throbbing capillaries in his wound. Kill him, steal his system, and we won't have to starve anymore. As his old flame, Duoduo, whispered in my little brother's ear. Spitting out that vicious curse, I was holding a piece of premium cheese I'd just taken from a human trap. I watched them as if they were a pair of clowns. Are you done crying yet, you pathetic loser? I sneered at him coldly, my voice tiny in my shrunken state. Though the sound was small, my little brother shuddered violently, looking around frantically as if grasping at straws. Brother, is that you? I think I heard your voice. Brother, where are you? Get me inside, quickly. Since he looked down on my shrinking system so much back then, despising it because it couldn't make him a king. Then today, I'll be merciful enough to show him what a real higher dimensional takedown is. With a single thought, I deactivated my dust mode state. Returning to 1/10 the size of a normal mouse, I materialized out of thin air right in front of him. My little brother's eyes widened in stunned disbelief. He even forgot about the searing pain in his leg. Before his sluggish brain could even process what was happening and cry for help, I turned my back on him. As if I were taking a stroll in my own backyard, I casually walked toward the death trap the humans had set up outside the crack in the wall. It was a dense maze of powerful glue traps. If so much as a single whisker got stuck, it would mean certain death. But for me, the gaps between the sticky patches were like a wide, 8-lane highway. I strolled leisurely through the gauntlet. I slipped into a nearby trap, an extremely complex gravity-activated cage. As my brother stared like he'd seen a ghost, I moved to the blind spot of the pressure plate deep inside the trap. Snatched a small piece of fresh cheddar cheese, and then returned the way I came. Returning flawlessly to the absolute safety of the wall's edge, my brother stared at the tempting, golden piece in my paws. The cheese giving off its rich aroma, and he swallowed hard. But that was followed by an extreme jealousy and greed that twisted his entire face. Why did he have to nearly die, while I could stroll through it like it was nothing? Just then, panting heavily, Duoduo, her mouth dripping with my brother's fresh blood, had actually followed the trail here. He glanced warily at the cheese in my hand, then at the venomous look in my little brother's eyes. My dear, do you see? Your brother has no intention of saving you. All we have to do is kill your brother and take that shrinking system of his. And we'll never have to starve again. Outside the crack in the wall, the air was thick with the sickening smell of blood and the cloying sweetness of cheap perfume, tangled together. In this wasteland, that acrid, pink smell could only mean one thing. An invitation from the Grim Reaper. And my dear, little brother, completely cornered, was planning to shove that invitation right down my throat to save his own skin. The cold light from the monitor screen illuminated my face. On the screen, my brother and Duoduo were huddled in a dark corner, whispering. From under some chair leg, they had dug out a large, moldy block of potent rat poison. Even expired, that stuff was still lethal. To lure me out, my brother was really pulling out all the stops this time. He lowered his head and, with all his strength, bit into his own hind leg, which was already festering and reeked of rot. Under Duoduo's disdainful gaze, he endured the excruciating pain, and smeared the thick, dark red pus and blood, bit by agonizing bit, all over the pink poison bait. The potent stench of blood perfectly masked the poison's acrid chemical odor. After all that, he dragged his mangled body over to the loose brick that served as my door. He collapsed on his back, limbs splayed out, and his body began to convulse with terrifying realism. He was foaming at the mouth, his eyes glazed over. Brother, I'm not going to make it. I found a fresh piece of meat. I can't eat it. I want you to have it, before I die. Brother. Please, come out and see me. I'm begging you. Meanwhile, Duoduo held her breath, hiding in the nearby shadows. Every muscle in her body was tensed, her eyes locked on that loose brick. A naked, greedy green light flashed in her eyes. The moment I poked my head out to grab that meat, They would pounce and rip my throat out. They'd snatch the shrinking system they once tossed aside like trash. I sat on the soft, cotton pad sofa in my miniature farm, holding a cup of warm dew, watching this laughably clumsy performance on the screen. A cold smile touched my lips. If you want to play this game so badly, then as your big brother, I'm happy to play along. I set down my cup. I walked to the entrance and gently pushed against the brick that served as a door with my paw. The brick made a faint scraping sound as a narrow gap slowly appeared. In the darkness, my brother's glazed-over eyes suddenly snapped into focus, his murderous intent laid bare. Did he really think he had won? The brick had barely moved, opening just a sliver. My brother, supposedly at death's door, shot up like a provoked zombie. It launched itself in an instant, with terrifying force. Its jaws, lined with blood-streaked, flesh-torn fangs, flew open like a cannonball shot from a barrel, aimed straight for my throat. "Die, you mutt, your system is mine," he shrieked with glee, his eyes wild with the madness of imminent victory. This one lunge held all the power of his will to survive. He moved so fast you couldn't even see a blur. Yet, just as his rank saliva and sharp teeth were 0.01 seconds from touching my fur, I didn't even blink. I calmly activated the shrinking system. A pale blue halo of light appeared. Like a shield of absolute defense, it instantly enveloped me. Along with the poisoned bait he'd smeared with pus and blood, my body instantly shrank to the size of a dust particle in a fraction of a second. I vanished from his sight. My brother's deadly lunge completely missed its mark. He lunged so hard he couldn't stop. His huge body lost its balance, like a heavy bag of trash, and slammed headfirst deep into the crack in the wall, onto the shards of broken glass the humans used to block the mouse hole. With a sickening thud, a razor-sharp piece of a beer bottle pierced straight through his shoulder muscle. Dark red blood instantly shot out, staining the entire crack in the wall. Meanwhile, in the microscopic world, I was standing on that same piece of shrunken, poisoned bait. Time around me seemed to slow down. I used my tiny claws to skillfully and precisely strip away the outer layer of starch and moldy flavoring from the poisoned bait. Extracting only the core, most lethal neurotoxin particles, I dissolved them into a small drop of condensation nearby. Using the system's absolute control over the microscopic structure of matter, I instantly solidified it into a microscopic needle, 100 times thinner than a strand of hair. I looked up at the mountain of flesh above me, who was clutching his shoulder and wailing in agony. With a cold smirk, I aimed the microneedle deep into his gushing wound. "Let me show you what a living hell feels like." With a nearly inaudible whoosh, that poison needle, thinner than a hair, precisely pierced the depths of my brother's torn shoulder. This wasn't a poison that would kill him instantly. Instead, it was the key to the gates of endless torment. The dosage in this needle was calculated with extreme precision. The minuscule amount of neurotoxin wouldn't let him die a quick death, but it was enough to act like countless tiny chainsaws and completely destroy his central nervous system. The moment the needle dissolved into his body, my brother's massive body suddenly went rigid. The muscles on his face, once twisted in pain, began to convulse violently. Within less than 2 seconds, his pupils dilated and lost focus. Then, amplified, extreme pain and terrifying hallucinations crashed over him like a tsunami. "Ahahaha, Robo-dog, don't shock me. Stay away." My brother suddenly thrashed around like a loach thrown into boiling water. He rolled violently in the narrow crack like he'd gone mad, his sharp claws mercilessly tearing at his own flesh, trying to dig the non-existent electrical currents out of his body. Duodwo, who was hiding in the shadows ready to reap the benefits, saw that something was wrong. She had just started to step forward to ask, "Darling." Before she could finish her sentence, my brother, completely consumed by hallucinations, whipped his head around and stared intently at her. In his eyes, his delicate, beloved Duodwo was now that machine that had cornered him. The thermal imaging rat-catching dog with its flashing red light. "I'll bite you to death, you hunk of metal." My brother roared, opened his massive jaws, and mercilessly pounced on Duodwo, biting down hard on one of her ears. Duodwo let out a blood-curdling scream. Blood instantly stained the side of her face. Seeing this, Duodwo's parents, who were nearby, pounced like mad, tearing and biting at my brother. The family of 4 thrashed and mauled each other wildly in the cramped space, making sickening thuds and blood-curdling screams. The commotion was just too loud, like someone was beating a drum inside the wall. Finally, the short-tempered human owner downstairs was completely enraged. Bang! A heavy baseball bat slammed hard against the wall. The man of the house roared hysterically, "These damn pests aren't all dead yet. Honey, call the most expensive exterminator in the city, the Ace Company. I swear, not a single breathing bug will be left alive in this building today." A greater catastrophe was at hand. In less than 2 hours, the air in the entire building froze. The moment the Ace Exterminator's uniforms appeared, it meant the war between humans and rats had entered a one-sided slaughter. No mousetraps, no cheap poison, only an inescapable, military-grade, overwhelming attack. The exterminators wore heavy gas masks, their movements professional and cold. They didn't even try to find the mouse holes. Instead, they went straight for the outer walls and ventilation duct openings on every floor, where they installed a dense array of black, high-frequency sonic rodent repellers and connected them to high-pressure gas tanks, preparing to release nerve gas. The instant the machines were activated, they produced a sound completely imperceptible to human ears. But for rodents, it was the horror of having your brain put inside a blender on full blast. The high-frequency sound waves instantly penetrated the thick, load-bearing walls. Out in the wall crevices, Didi and Duoduo's family, who a second ago were locked in a vicious fight, were instantly thrown apart as if they'd been electrocuted. They rolled on the ground in agony, pressing their front paws desperately against their ears. Deep red blood dripped steadily from their ruptured eardrums. Under such extreme fear and physical torture, all semblance of reason was gone. They scurried around like headless flies, following the one path deliberately left open by the humans. The only escape route not sprayed with poison gas, frantically scrambling toward the outside of the wall. And in my miniature safe house, I calmly pressed the switch for the high-density, sound-dampening foam door. Then, I activated the miniature air circulation and filtration system, powered by stolen, discarded button batteries. Outside, the world was coming to an end, with poison gas filling the air. But in my underground city, all was peaceful and quiet. I couldn't smell a single strange odor. Cut off a small piece of a fresh, sweet, and crunchy walnut, and chewed it leisurely, all while watching the surveillance screen. On it, Didi and Duoduo's family were being forced out from the safety of the walls, bit, by the sound waves and the gas. They had no idea that at the bright exit, the humans had already laid a trap. A perfect trap that would leave them unable to live and unable to die. Could they possibly survive the night? In the corridor beyond the wall crevice, there were no longer any traditional iron cages. In their place, covering the entire floor, were powerful, specially made glue boards, shimmering with a strange black light. It was a bottomless black marsh. To fall onto it meant eternal imprisonment. Didi and Duoduo's family, driven mad by the high-frequency sound, leapt from the opening in the wall without a second thought. As soon as they landed, their limbs were instantly devoured by this black marsh. The stickiness of this industrial-grade glue is absolutely terrifying. Didi tried in terror to lift his front leg, but found his paw was stuck to it as if it had been welded on. He pulled with all his might, only to have his fur, along with his flesh, brutally ripped away, sending a searing pain through him. Blood streamed onto the glue, which only made it even stickier. The more he struggled, the deeper he became trapped. The more he fought, the more his flesh tore. "Help! Somebody, please help me!" Didi wailed in despair, half of his body already covered by the adhesive. At the end of the corridor, the extermination staff, dressed in protective suits, were approaching step by step like grim reapers, holding cold iron tongs and thick plastic bags. And just then, a sickening scene unfolded. Duoduo, who had been struggling frantically, looked at the approaching humans and suddenly stopped moving. He endured the excruciating pain of having half the skin on his face ripped away. And with great difficulty, he turned his head. Using his one good front paw, he pointed directly at Didi beside him. Duoduo let out an extremely sharp and mournful cry at the humans. It was a cry of utter sycophancy, the sound of someone trying to make up for their own crimes by selling someone else out. It was as if he was telling on Didi to the humans. It was all him. It was all this disgusting mouse is doing. He even has a stash of food hidden in the pipes. Go get him. I'm innocent. Let me go. Although the humans couldn't understand mouse speak, Duoduo's frantic body language, desperately trying to pass the buck, was on full display. My brother just stood there, letting his mangled hind leg be pulled and torn until it was dripping with blood, having even forgotten the pain. He stared blankly at the white moonlight before him, the one he had once risked his life to protect, even betraying his own brother for her. In that moment, the last glimmer of light in my brother's eyes was completely extinguished. As if plunged into an ice cellar, he finally, truly understood. It was the betrayal I felt in my past life when he pushed me from the building with his own hands, the betrayal by your closest loved one. A despair that chilled him from head to toe. The immense shadow of humanity had completely enveloped them. The cold iron tongs slowly opened. Crunch. It was the sound of the tongs crushing bone. My brother's despairing scream instantly pierced through the entire building, but I, watching from the miniature screen, actually laughed out loud. The show was only just reaching its climax. The gruesome sound of tearing flesh echoed through the hallway filled with poison gas. It was the sound of flesh being forcibly peeled away from strong glue. As the shadow of death loomed, extreme fear finally brought out the bloodlust and viciousness buried deep in my brother's bones, the kind that belongs to a sewer rat. The heavy footsteps were like a death knell rung by the Grim Reaper. At the end of the hallway, an exterminator in a heavy, fully sealed white protective suit held a pair of cold, metal tongs. He advanced step by step, treading on the corpses of mutated rats that covered the floor, as my brother struggled desperately. But more than half of his body was stuck fast in the glue. He watched as his own kind had their heads crushed by the tongs, one by one. His eyes turned crimson. He suddenly lowered his head and bit down. He clamped down hard on his own trapped hind leg. There was the crisp snap of bone being bitten clean through. Fresh blood gushed out like a fountain, splattering onto the barely breathing Duodwo beside him. My brother, like a crazed beast, not only bit off his own leg, but also viciously tore off his stuck tail, which had already started to fester and turn black. He let out a piercing scream from the excruciating agony, a pain that made his whole body tremble. But he didn't dare stop, dragging the mangled, blood-gushing lower half of his body. Like a lump of mangled flesh, he desperately rolled off the edge of the glue trap. Behind him, the desperate and venomous curses of Duodwo's family erupted. "You selfish piece of trash. I hope you die a horrible death. Come back and save me." That voice that had once utterly captivated him. That sweet voice he had regarded as his white moonlight was now as shrill as fingernails. Scraping across a blackboard, filled with venomous hatred, my brother didn't even turn his head. Love? Promises? In the face of survival, they were worth less than nothing. He left a shocking, thick trail of blood in his wake. Panicked, he scrambled blindly into a corner and dove into an extremely hidden, spare ventilation duct. His survival instinct was the only thing keeping him going. All he wanted was to escape as high as he could, far away from that human-made hell of neurotoxin spray. He didn't know how long he crawled through the dark duct. The dizziness from blood loss nearly made him faint over and over again. When he finally used his last ounce of strength to crawl out of the duct and felt a cold draft on his face, he slowly opened his eyes, but the sight before him made his blood run cold. Where had he climbed to? A fierce wind howled through the window blinds, rushing into his throat. Mixed with the strong stench of disinfectant from downstairs and the nauseating, bloody smell of his own kind. My brother lay numbly on the cold sheet metal, staring at the familiar scene before him. An indescribable realization shot up from the base of his spine to the top of his skull. This was the main ventilation duct exit on the 18th floor, the very place where, in his last life, in order to seize the shrinking system, and for a manipulative hamster girl, he had unhesitatingly pushed me into the abyss with his own hands, the scene of the crime. The wheels of fate had turned full circle and, in a most ironic fashion, brought him, half dead, crawling back to where it all started. My brother gasped violently for breath. His broken body left a large pool of blood on the metal sheet. He thought he had finally escaped. Fighting through the excruciating pain of his broken leg, he parted his blood-filled mouth. Just as he was about to let out a relieved laugh, a giant shadow silently loomed over him from above. Blocking the faint moonlight filtering through the ventilation shaft, I deactivated my micro-state, returning to the size of a normal mouse, and stood above the vent, looking down on him. I was wearing a spotless sleep robe, sewn from the finest silk fabric discarded by humans. Meticulously crafted, in this post-apocalyptic world littered with corpses. My fur was glossy and smooth, even giving off a faint, fresh scent of morning dew and dried fruit. Compared to his current state, a broken leg and tail, his body covered in filth. glue, and blood, reeking of a foul stench. We were truly worlds apart. My brother's laughter stopped abruptly. His whole body froze as if electrocuted. In disbelief, he slowly lifted his head. His one murky eye, caked with gunk and bloodshot, stared dead at me, as if he were witnessing the most impossible supernatural event in the world. Long time no see, my dear little brother. I looked down at him coldly, my eyes devoid of any warmth, as if I were looking at a worthless, disgusting piece of trash. That light-hearted greeting, however, was like a heavy sledgehammer. That viciously shattered my brother's last shred of hope. Bro, you're not dead? My brother trembled and shrank back, his mangled face a mask of pure horror, as if he'd seen a ghost. His crippled hind leg scraped a miserable, bloody streak across the metal sheet. His teeth chattered from extreme fear, making a clattering sound. I paid no attention to his shock. I simply leaned down slightly, my gaze as cold as a blade. And in a voice that was extremely calm, yet sharp enough to pierce his eardrums, I spoke, enunciating every single word. I began to speak unhurriedly. Bro, if only you weren't so stubborn about giving me the shrinking system. I could have gotten into the human safe and stolen those golden nuggets for Duo and her family. You're old anyway. If you died, this system should have been mine. The moment the words left my mouth, the air seemed to freeze. I had just recited what he, in my past life, had screamed at me before pushing me off the building. Those heartless, cruel words. I repeated them word for word, without missing so much as a punctuation mark. My brother's pupils instantly dilated to their absolute limit. On his blood-stained rat face, his features twisted completely in utter terror. You were also Re. His voice trembled uncontrollably, as if a piece of broken glass were stuck in his throat. He couldn't even finish the word. Extreme fear had completely shattered his mental defenses. Suddenly, like a beaten dog, he prostrated himself on the cold metal sheet and began to frantically slam his head against the ground with dull thuds. He was at death's door, yet he still dared to play his favorite card, emotional blackmail. Brother, I was wrong. In my past life, I was blinded by greed. It was that bitch Duo who seduced me. For the sake of all the times you fed me, bite by bite, since we were kids. For the sake of the leg I've already lost. I'm your only brother. Please, save me one more time, bro. He was crying, snot and tears streaming down his face, trying to use our family bond for one last bit of moral blackmail. But would I grant him his wish? Save you? I chuckled softly, that deeply ironic laugh scattered in the howling wind, as if I had just heard the funniest joke in this apocalyptic world. He was at death's door, yet he still thought that our ridiculous blood ties could save his life. I didn't even want a single one of my whiskers to touch its filthy body. I just stood at a completely safe distance, and unhurriedly, cruelly, told him the brutal truth. Do you have any idea what I've been through these past few days? Little brother? I stared into his despairing eyes. I slept in my micro-safe house, on the softest bed made of all cotton wipes. I grew fresh, crisp cabbages and raised a whole box of plump, juicy, high-grade mealworms bursting with protein. Even if the humans outside were wreaking havoc with poison gas, my food supply in my underground city was enough for me to eat comfortably and without a care for a full 5 years. I paused, looking at his throat as he kept swallowing bloody foam, and delivered the final, soul-crushing blow. Oh, that's right, that half of a soda cracker you used in your past life to win over Duo, the one you even killed me to steal. I just finished it for afternoon tea yesterday. It was toasted nice and crispy. It tasted really good. With every word I spoke, my brother's body trembled violently. Jealousy, regret, hunger, excruciating pain, and the ultimate despair of realizing he had personally shattered his only hope of survival in this apocalypse. All of it, like countless venomous snakes, sank their fangs deep into his heart. He realized he could have followed me, living a life of luxury, ruling as a king in the apocalypse. But because of his own greed and stupidity, he had reduced himself to this wretched pile of flesh, neither human nor ghost. He stared at me, and murky, bloody tears actually streamed from his eyes. Extreme indignation made him let out a beast-like roar. He opened his bloody maw, wanting to use his last breath to lunge and tear me to pieces. But extreme weakness, blood loss, and the lingering neurotoxin left him without even the strength to stand up, just as he tried to use his only remaining front paws to prop up his body, that puddle of his own thick, fresh blood on the iron sheet. caused his feet to slip violently. His body completely lost its balance. He fell backward, and the sensation of weightlessness instantly enveloped him. The cold wind cut like a knife across his torn flesh, and the pungent smell of disinfectant filled his nostrils. It was just like in my past life. Except this time, the one pushed into the bottomless abyss was him. He didn't even have time to let out a full scream before his body tumbled straight out of the unguarded ventilation duct opening on the 18th floor, plunging into the boundless darkness. I stood impassively at the duct's opening, looking down as his figure plummeted through the air, like watching an insignificant speck of dust fall to the ground. A few seconds later, a faint, extremely dull thud, like a water bag bursting, drifted up from far below the 18th floor. His trajectory was perfectly precise. Without deviation, he landed right on the floor below, in the hallway that was covered with black, heavy-duty glue traps. And he landed right on top of the equally trapped, flesh-torn, and painfully gasping duo. The powerful impact instantly shattered them both to pieces. Mangled flesh and fresh blood, mixed with the glue, fused them tightly together. Now, this treacherous pair of rats could finally be dead together for all eternity, never to be separated again. The shrill sound of sirens swirled and crisscrossed below. The exterminator's high-pressure gas canisters hissed dully. The humans' indiscriminate extermination of the building was still ongoing, and would soon spread to the entire city. I knew that this apocalyptic rat extermination, which would last for a full 5 years, had only just begun, but it had nothing to do with me anymore. I turned away, not sparing that hellscape another glance. With a single thought, a faint blue light flashed, and I once again shrank myself down to the size of a dust particle. Following the sturdy cracks in the wall, I skillfully made my way back to my secret, indestructible underground city. The heavy, soundproof door slowly closed. The mini air purifier emitted a faint, reassuring hum, completely shutting out all the screams, poison gas, and despair from the outside world. I took off my silk jacket and brewed myself a cup of piping hot dried fruit tea. I sank comfortably on that soft sofa, made from high-end human cosmetic cotton. I opened a miniature novel bound with scraps of newspaper. An apocalyptic storm of wind and blood rages outside the walls, but my perfect and prosperous reborn life has only just begun.